Peace. In the name of Allah, I am Aubrey Muhammad. I pray that everyone is well. Welcome to my Facebook Live titled, Brothers Gonna Work It Out. And yes, we are. All right. Give a few minutes for folks to chime in. I pray that everyone is well. Oh, let me check the audio first, y'all. Sorry about that. Just have to check this audio. Yeah, that audio is very loud. Good. Praise be to Allah. Hope that everyone weekend is going well. Beautiful Sunday. Long overdue. Plants I had planted and everything. And little pots. I didn't do a micro garden because of the uncertainty in Hempstead. Well, that's another long story, but plant seeds every year, do little herbs and stuff, and try to do plants for the house, bring some life into the house. And this is late, everything's blooming late this year, but it's nonetheless here. We need to do that every year around the community, especially suburbs, and even cities. Cities are doing micro farming on rooftops, you know. And so the late season, but it was a nice, beautiful day. And I pray that everyone was graced. And the update, I think, from last time was the Hempstead School Board election. That was, the results was Lamont Johnson and Joylette Williams. And that is unfortunate news for the misdevelopment that continues in Hempstead. Both of those members, they're good brothers and sisters, let me say this. Good Lamont Johnson, Joylette Williams, I love you, brother and sister. But Lamont, you do some snakish things, brother. And your handlers, y'all handlers, aim to keep us a permanent underclass, and they do it behind the scenes. They're the puppet masters behind the scenes, making things happen in this village. And it ain't us. And I have to make that declaration, because both of you were on the IDA board where we exhausted ourselves. Got a little 5 minutes to give us. You know, a little Hempstead School Board meeting, the IDA board meeting, that's the town of Hempstead who gives out these tax break policies, undeserving wealthy apartment owners that don't reciprocate that benefit back to the community. They give them out like candy. They give out tax breaks like candy, a child in the candy store. And both of you sat on that board. And we presented our case that these tax breaks are they devitalized this village for 2 decades. It was a thriving, prosperous black suburb. In the 60s and 70s, it was thriving and prosperous up to the early 80s. And you know how that went. What was the early 80s? Drugs being done. Well, they had heroin out here in Long Island. It wasn't as bad. I remember the remnants. I remember the heroin strap you would see in some of our dresser drawers. You know, the white strap that cuts off circulation so you could shoot a needle. I remember it as a child, looking at that. And in the 70s, a lot of businesses were black-owned. You had a ton of black-owned business. Lamont Johnson, your own father, was an industrious business owner, contributed towards the community, because he loved this community. And you brought that up at an IDA board meeting. My father, business went out being displaced. I don't want to displace them. But you voted for the same building that was Carmen Place for the residential. It was a 2-phase pilot, Carmen Place, that I did a walkthrough on the other video. You voted for them, brother. You voted for the retail, which is for you being discontent with the commercial. I don't like the commercial because them businesses got to go. They ain't coming back. You didn't say they're coming back. You didn't say you didn't like them being displaced. But while you're displacing hundreds of others of small businesses and tenants and homeowners by the thousands, homeowners, tenants, businesses by the hundreds, you supported that. And we presented this to you. And we spoke directly to you at times. The Coalition of Concerned Citizens came in these IDA board meetings, and I voiced my opinion. They gave us the 5 minutes, and that it was devitalization, it was it brought down the quality of life in Hempstead. It was done on purpose. It was racist, and it was a prelude to developers now taking over the village of Hempstead to make it an urban city for the wealthy, new-coming gentry, which are wealthy outsiders that will contribute nothing. You sat on those boards, both of you, Lamont Johnson and Joylette Williams, and you voted for those pilots, most of them. And it is unjust, it is racist, and it will bring about a development that is classist and segregationist. But enough of that. That's a whole different thing. That was just to catch up on the last podcast. This it's about 7-10 time for everybody coming here. And if there are any issues, fam, with my audio, please let me know, or the video. And this video in the background, that's just, that's actually themed to Public Enemy's Brothers Gonna Work It Out. And you'll see random pictures of great black men, contributing black men to our communities, past and present. I think it's like in 2012. And the message today mainly is to young brothers, because that older generation, these sellout politicians, these preachers, the most we could do for them is throw them in the trash bin. They're broken. They have no vision, they don't have no strength, they don't have the energy to invest and fight in our people and community. The older generation, old Jim Crow, James Clyburn down south. That old leadership that just want favors for their friends after black outrage. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. You played a symbolic role. You got no tangibles for black people. You fought for no tangibles. All that pain, and you took that outrage and you got settlements and favors for your friends. Jesse got little jobs and stuff for select people. That was a sellout. That's detrimental to the development of our communities. The young brothers, who's warning them that they're being targeted? The church is not warning them. The churches keep us passive. Be passive. Be compliant. They do everything in their power to keep young brothers from showing any strength and that masculine energy that we need to grow and protect our communities. That old guard, they weren't guard. They weren't gatekeepers. They left the gate open. And this is why all the black areas are being gentrified. Gentrification is one of the most detrimental. And you notice, almost every time I speak, I bring this up about civics and development, because it's harrying us away. It's devastating. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought this up in the 50s. He said, we're just like wild savages, going from state to state, bouncing around with no home, no land to call our own, nothing that we could say is ours. We're like nomads. And it's been going on for 100 years. This has been a 100-year plan. After sharecropping, slavery, chattel slavery, we built the all-black towns. They raised those. You know what raised means? Raised means they burned to the ground. T-Town, Tulsa, Oklahoma was, Black Wall Street was bombed from the air. And there was a military plane involved. 2 bombings occurred in America by air. Well, actually 3. 2, but the 2 early ones were, one was 100 years ago, T-Town, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The other one was Philadelphia, with a Negro mayor, bombed the Move complex, bombed it. Sent an incendiary device, burned all the accompanying houses. They would never do that to a Caucasian area. Mayor William Good, I think his name is Good or Goodson. He's a good son. He bombed and murdered our people, men, women, and children. And the third bombing was what? The World Trade Center in the Pentagon and that was an inside job. But for the longest, the only American cities ever bombed, Japan never made it here. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, but America bombed our own, and those own that they really don't consider us, they consider us property. Blacktown, bomb, Tulsa, Oklahoma. That 100 years, what were young black men doing? We were industrious 100 years ago. We were spectacular. We were the most industrious people on the planet. You hypocrites and you newcomers, you immigrants that fix your mouth to call Native Black Americans lazy. Nah, we ain't lazy, we tired of these tricks and these games of being betrayed at every turn, from every corner except nationalist militant groups, Nation of Islam, Black Panthers, the Moors, and other black power groups and black conscience groups, Church of the Black Madonna in Detroit, those other conscience groups. And there's many more, especially in New York and Oakland and Los Angeles. We're the only ones that develop stuff for us. The rest of us abandoned us. They want us to be passive servants. Our industriousness had built the country, and we went on to ourselves to do something for ourselves. They ran us out, back to sharecropping, robbed us here, brought us into the cities. I want to show what happened to us, to the young brothers, what the plan is for us today. After we didn't learn to read during slavery, this shows how powerful and talented we are, how spectacular of a people we are, Native Black people. They didn't let us read or write for centuries. And like that, we built all black towns. We had dominated patents at the turn of the century. They stole all of them. And after they raised them towns, all of our patent applications ceased. It was pogroms. It was collective. It was to get us back into a servitude position. Slave owners, after slavery, the Civil War, got reparations for losing their slaves temporarily, because there was a new form of slavery coming. After they did the sharecropping, which they robbed us. Imagine working a year saying, you don't get that much money yet. But I understood we couldn't read. Some of us who could read would be like, they're robbed. We could count money. We were robbed. We wound up owing these crooks, these rotten, ain't no good in Caucasians in America for black people and Native people. There's no good in them for us. It's always a trick and a treat. They present the treat, but it's a trick. After leaving the sharecropping, they're like, dang, man, we working for nothing. Then another year go by. I remember Mother Rashid told me that. Mother Rashid, may Allah be pleased with her. She is a beautiful spirit, Mother Rashid. I used to go and sit in her house and her son Hakeem years ago on the Heights, and she would be teaching me, man. She would teach me like masonry, and she would teach me a lot of the deeper symbolism of Islam that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. She knew a lot of that, the symbolism. I could never answer her questions. It was amazing. Sometimes I was sitting in a chair. One day I was sitting on a bed. She was sitting in the chair. I was looking out the window. And she would ask me some questions. Some questions would be deep. What did the crown, Brother Orvie, what did crown mean? The jewel in the crown. And what does that title mean? And the symbolism, when a woman is seen behind, it was deep stuff. And then she said, what that mean, Brother Orvie? She would point that finger at me. And I would say, well, Mother Rashid, from my understanding, it mean blah. And I would never, she would be like, nope. And she would go on and teach me. And I never answered her questions. But one question, I was sitting at one day I was sitting in a chair. And she was teaching, I think it was on a bed. And she was teaching, I was looking at the window and I fell asleep. When I woke up, she was staring at me. And she pointed her finger at me again. She said, Brother Irby, the truth will wake you up or put you to sleep. Then she went on to continue teaching. But the one question I answered she asked me, she looked out the window, and there was a young brother riding his bicycle past. And she looked at me. She said, young brother Aubrey, she said, brother Aubrey, who is going to go after our youth, the young brothers? Who has got, who's going to go after them and provide, programs and provide a way for them? Maybe it was a way. Who's going to go after them? And I said, people always have these plans and stuff. They never follow through. All we hear is a program. You got these programs, but those programs don't reach deep enough into us. And I said, those of us who are willing to sacrifice our careers and other she said, that's right, Brother Aubrey. That's the only question I answered right that she ever really asked me, because those questions was real deep. May Allah be pleased with, God bless her soul. She was like 90-something, I believe, when Mother Rashid returned to Allah. And she had a sort of this resemblance to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, like she could have been related to him. And Mother Rashid, the youth. What is the plan for our youth? Young black men, and black men in general, but young in particular. They have a plan for our future, and it's incarceration. 100 years ago, they had us in chain gangs, in prisons. That's when they started building the prison. Most of them prisons you see is old penitentiaries. Angola, down in the South. Remember those big plantations? They leased us out to there. We had to serve there. We didn't know how to read and write. They tricked us. Well, after slavery in the East, the northern Christian schools came to us, and that's how we started learning, really. And they taught us that it was a watered down version of their white Christianity. I forgot which, I don't think it was the Catholic Church. It could have been the Baptists, I believe. A lot of them were teaching us in the South. Family and Christian, from a Caucasoid, Caucasian form of Christianity teaching, which, in a format, but it didn't speak into our nature, bring the best out of us, to make us start building and doing things for self. But it was a good thing. So we weren't highly educated. So we got tricked into not having those passes. Everywhere you had to go, remember Jim Crow South, the black codes, that was aimed at us. Where they caught you without a pass, going to work somewhere, to go sharecropping, to go get exploited. You out here going to get exploited. On your way to get exploited. At the end of the year, they ain't giving you nothing. That was the message I was giving you about Mother Rashid, also about how she was being exploited. When she was they were building the highways. The U.S. government was building the highways, and I believe she was in Alabama, and they had these crackers on horses and shotguns, overseeing it. Another form of slavery. She was a young girl, Mother Rashid, and she was building the highways, the American highways in Alabama. And one week, which was common for these crackers, these Caucasians, they're just demonic, man. They didn't pay anybody. These were government contracts and stuff. Municipal contract. They didn't pay anybody. So, and understand, when we went through that, we would lead other whites, Caucasians nearby, would make offers to us. Come with me, I'll give you more gold for your labor. America, big ass trick. Come with me, I'll give you more gold for your labor. And another man from her crew went over to that other Caucasian worker because they wasn't getting paid. And some man gunned him down, shotgun him down, one of them overseers. Killed him for going to another white man to get a better deal. And Mother Rashid, after that, went to go get her money. She's a young girl. She would buy him and her were on this highway by themselves. And she asked him for his money. She said, you better pay me. And she was bold, Mother Rashid. She said, he looked this way down the highway, he looked that way down the highway, then he looked at her. Then he threw her like 50 cents, a week pay or something like that. And he said, don't tell nobody I gave that to you. That's how it was in the South. We don't live like that. So you leave that. We got robbed. We were in debt. We owed them. So we came to the cities. So if you stayed in the South and you didn't have, they would trick you easily. There's something to read. Sundown towns, there's still sundown towns out here. Long Island, there's sundown towns. Everybody black in Hempstead know that. You can go out and see it late at night. Eyes all over you. And you will be pulled over. Certain parts of Rockville Center. And I ain't gonna go into the North Shore. Old Bethpage, you over there at night, you being tracked. There's sundown towns, you're not there. You can come and work during the day in a little strip mall in the village, but you have to leave at night. So they imprison us for little things. It was absurd. Go read Michelle Alexander book. I think it's Another Form of Slavery, the second phase of slavery, something like that. Good sister that went deep into that. And they put us in chain gangs, mills, all type of mines. We went mining for nothing. They exploited us in chain gangs in prison, doing all type of work. They had that plan from the beginning through miseducation. Well, they taught us to read, but they didn't teach us the nature of Caucasian people. And we never taught that. We had that saying, don't trust white folks. I heard that as a child in the 70s. I grew up hearing that. Don't trust white people. And I would go visit my cousins and stuff. We weren't blood relatives, but we were cousins from the South. A lot of us from the South in the 60s and 70s. We came up to Long Island, called ourselves. It probably went on all around the country too. If you came from the South, you came into a city, then the suburbs, and you got along with each other, and your parents hung out, and the children were together. We called ourselves cousins, and that's true. We are cousins. And I'll go and visit them in 5 towns. It was crystal clear. That segregation was subtle, but it was done with a nod and a wink. You know, get out of here. You know you don't belong here. It's good. You work during the day. At night, you don't walk through there. They went from chain gangs to that exploitative labor to modern day and time to gangs in chains. They went from chain gangs to gangs in chains. All of that prison industrial complex was aimed at us. Whites never filled up in prison. You had to be a hardcore white or Italian mobster, a gangster like that to go to prison back then. They're a small minority. The majority of this population, majority of population Americans, but a minority in jail. And there's no reason why. And even in jail, it's colorism. It's a lot of light-skinned brothers dominate jail, the numbers, we the majority there, or so-called dark-skinned brothers. And why? Because the society don't fit our nature, doesn't reflect our nature, doesn't complement our nature. We're a threat. Black male seen as a threat. Caucasians have fear of genetic annihilation. The male, when the Caucasian woman right there with him, backing him up in that sickness, that's a disease. That's a spiritual disease, and it's a nature. You know how nature sets something against each other? How the predator and the prey and things naturally repel each other. Some mammals and animals in the animal kingdom got a jump feature to them. Something is a knee jerk to them. Well, that's the nature of Caucasian and black people. The nature of Caucasian male, he has fear of genetic annihilation. That's the black male reproductive organ that has the power with melanin and soul and that universal God energy to reduce his numbers. That mixture don't come out furthering white supremacy. You turn my complexion. You're more beige when you get so-called mixed. You get a so-called light, you're yellow. We used to call each other yellow. They had a saying long ago. If you're black, step back. If you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, you mellow. If you're white, you eye. Dang. All types of sayings like that. Because that stuff was beat into us. And now it's reflected around the world. But they aim to contain us and constrain us. And it's our own people. It was the frightened, you know. It's our women are security minded. Women are security based. A woman wants security. What do men want in life? We want, everybody wants importance, okay? But male is more, we want importance and dominance. We want to express our masculine energy. Well, that energy is a threat to Caucasian men. This is why you see look at it in sports, in hockey. That's mainly dominated by Caucasian males. It'd be skinny white boys. Most of them punks, really, because they skinny, man. Them dudes, they all, look at all the equipment they got around them. It's compensatory. Whenever people do things like that, that's compensatory. And they're playing on that ice, white, the blue-white ice. Very symbolic in the caves of Europe. All that padded up is exaggerated mass. It's exaggerated mass. It's supposed to be muscle. And that hockey stick ain't as deadly as it looks. That hockey stick is light. That hockey stick is about 19 ounces. It'll whap you, but it's not like a deadly weapon. And that black puck that they smack around and try to get in the goal, that's symbolic. Go read Dr. Frances Cress Wells in the ISIS papers. She spelled it ISIS papers. It's ISIS, but I'll say ISIS papers. Go read that book. Dr. Frances Cress Wells. She has a good YouTube video, I believe. I forgot which, where she has a chalkboard in the back, and she's writing down a lot of stuff. And you'll learn from her things about the natures of Caucasian and black people. Black men, you are a natural threat to white men. Were you taught that in school? Were you taught that in church? No, they just suppress you. A woman wants security. They all want importance, but she wants security. And if you're a threat to him, a natural threat, she senses it. Back in the 50s and 60s, we were cleaning all their homes. Native blacks in America, we cleaned all these white folks' homes. They did all the menial work in the 50s and 60s. The Nation of Islam, it was a nationalist group that had our own stuff, started buying things, doing for self. And there were other some churches that did that. But the churches, it was the Nation of Islam that taught the nature of Caucasian and black people, and the Moors. But the Nation of Islam, we were the most popular, the most prevalent subculture in black America. And the church didn't teach you. The church just went through the motions of keeping you safe. So they would say, don't fight them. They always would constrain us not to fight. Very few black, that's natural to protect the child, mother protecting the child. As he goes out, I'm saying that constraint was not, no, if you come attack a child, the mother, yeah, she'll rip you apart. A good mother will rip you apart. I'm talking about sending the child out into the world. You give these mixed, these weak signals to him, these weak instructions to stay low, keep your head low, don't get in trouble and stuff, which is natural and understandable. But this is how we went out amongst Caucasians. We were never taught the natures of Caucasian people, especially in the church. In the church, it made it worse. The black church was strong back in the 60s and 70s, well, the 60s. And because Minister Farrakhan went back into the churches to start teaching Afrocentricity and black Jesus and a black theology of black power and independence. But most of the churches, who was up in there? A lot of women up in churches. That ain't changed. I used to go to St. Mark's Church up in Harlem. Man. And feminized men, everywhere, broken men. Ain't no warriors protecting the community there. Now with the Ethiopic Coptic Church in Harlem, I would go to, well, I would meet members. I didn't go there. I met members of the Ethiopic Coptic Church. Beautiful brothers and sisters, black people in America. All part of that church in Harlem. That was in the 90s. Strong men. FOI was strong. We got the training. Because we taught the natures between the human beings. This was taboo in the church and in homes. You're taught just to go get a job and not be a threat. That is impossible. You cannot teach black men that. You're naturally a threat. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing pointed out that that gun, early on, what did the Caucasian call the gun? What was that, the Colt 45 or the Browning? I believe it was Colt 45. They called it the equalizer. Equal to what are you compensating for? A black male reproductive organ, our testicles and phallus, is a natural threat to Caucasian males. She even showed an art. When you show a white person and a black person, they study this. What do you think Masonry is all about? The secret societies, the Illuminati. They don't teach you in public school, but in their temples, their synagogues, and in their lodges, they teach the nature between Caucasian and black. But out here, you have to observe it, nearly full observe it. Dr. Frances Cress said what? She said that if you take a black picture, see like this black screen behind me, an all black picture, and you put a white dot in the center, then and you put it on the left side, then right beside it, you take an equal size white background and put a black spot in it, and you show the Caucasian male the black background with the white spot, he gets uneasy. He feels threatened. It frightens him. And you show him the white picture with the black spot, he feels ease because the white is surrounding the black, dominating the black. And with the black one was dominating the white. And that's the way so-called race mixing is. It ain't even race mixing, it's grafting, which is a whole nother podcast. Grafting. That's the science of selective breeding. We do that now. We do it backwards, though, black people. We do it for skin tone, complexion, and hair texture. We graft and selected black Americans who hate ourselves because we try to get closer to white because we hate our natural black. Why? Because it's a threat to white supremacy. It's a threat to the Caucasian male. We naturally, especially you so-called dark-skinned brothers, and I say so-called dark-skinned, so-called light-skinned, because what you are levels of grafting. That's a proper scientific term. But I can't go into that unless I do a whole podcast to break that down in nature, grafting and slicing and gene DNA is deep. So we're a natural threat. And very few people warned us, very few people taught us. You see Malcolm back there, he was a great teacher. Adam Clayton Powell stood up for black power. He's a man my complexion. He had straighter hair texture. But he understood the natures between the different people. And this threat now, how do you deal with a threat? You neutralize it. You constrain it. How do you do that? You get out. We did it ourselves. And it's our parents that shows favoritism towards lighter-skinned children. And you show favoritism. Go look at some of your family pictures from the 60s and 70s. Most of us, I'm talking about Hempstead now. Even the school pictures. Go look at your family pictures. Who was more groomed? Who was more upkept and cared for? Well, you know that. You know the answer. You ain't got to look at the picture. That favoritism. You should never favor any of your children. Don't favor any child. Develop their characteristics. Look for the best in them. We'll be taught this, we'll be trained this. This is manhood, womanhood training. You make this flaw all the time. The man leave you, woman, sister, your man leave you. He was attracted to you sexually, physically. You were eye candy, trophy wife, whatever. He got what he needed, and he neglected you, looking at better, sweeter eye candy. Now he's gone, left you with the child. The little boy, you see him and the little boy. So how do you treat him? You mistreat him. You neglect him, abuse him. Our black Americans, verbal abuse is some of the most destructive language on the planet. Verbal abuse. Some of the stuff I remember. Not only did we get whippings, damn, I used to get hit with anything. I was sneaky and stealing stuff, taking a little dollar bill out my mom's pocketbook and stuff, or whatever little candy, and sneaking stuff I shouldn't. But I learned that sneakiness from somewhere. Right in the home. Lying. You gotta stop lying. We watch. Children, we like sponges. This is why they're destroying us. We like sponges. I watch sneaky stuff. All the relatives and especially you speak to who you want to. Back in the 70s, them phones didn't have caller ID. They had to have someone else answer the phone. They ring up the phone. You remember the Marbell phones? You answer the phone, the line phone, and who is it? Blah, blah, blah. She's here. Is Jenny? Is Carol home? And Carol in the back. Now, we children watching this. Carol is lying and showing cowardice and sneakiness. And we watch it as children. And we got to be quiet. Oh, y'all be quiet. As your cousin lies to your mother's girlfriend. Nah, she's not here. She's gone. She'll be back later. You hang up the phone. We learned that sneakiness. We learned it. And then, now when we take that out into the world, we haven't been warned that the police are playing traps and games with us. We haven't learned. They're playing games with us. We went from chain gangs to gangs and chains. Have you ever been taught, young brother, to shut your mouth when you have an encounter with the police? Have you ever been taught that? To remain silent, shut your mouth until you speak to a lawyer. It's all game. That this been going on. Remember Cooley High? That was in the early 70s, I think Cooley High came out. But it reflected the 60s. But it was, I think, in the early 70s, when Cochise and Preach got arrested with Stone and Robert, I believe the gangsters was. Matter of fact, those are my favorite two characters of the movie. Cooley High, Stone and Robert. When he was riding that Cadillac. And the police was chasing him because Preach panicked behind the wheel and he took off. But he got away from him. But he crashed into somebody else's car. Pow! And the brother got out saying, whiplash, whiplash. And his wife told him, lay down, fool. Well, in that movie, after the police came into the school with Mr. Mason, played by Mark Garrison, I believe is his name, Mr. Mason's class, and the police said, we want Preaching Cochise for Grand Theft Auto, whatever that was. And they took them to the police precinct. What did they do? They put them in separate rooms. And they started working on them. No one told them to shut their mouth. But when you arrest, they tell you have the right to remain silent. That means shut your mouth until you talk to the community, your family, your lawyer. Well, the community, we don't get involved no more like we do, unless it's a brutalization, unless they brutalize you, which is in their nature, because you're a natural threat. That's why they treat with soft kid gloves terrorists, Caucasian terrorists, white supremacists, murderer, up in Buffalo, murdered 11 our people, just as we kill them. But what did they do? Treat them with kid gloves. Come on now, I heard he put a pistol to his head and they begging with him. That's a scene out of Higher Learning, John Singleton movie. What's the guy? He's a good actor. The white boy that played him. He played a skinhead. It was in the dorm with Omar, brother Omar, the actor that played in Juice. And from that, he put his skull to the gun to his skull and said, "I'll kill myself." And then the white cops and security that come, they take it so intensely. No, pleading with him, please don't lose your white life. We got to protect the white race against this black threat. But he was just gunning down people, sniping them from the tower. Dylan Roof, another devil, murdering terrorists. We're supposed to kill them, black people. It's the root to why I'm saying what I'm saying. They treat their own with kid gloves, but how do they treat you, unarmed? They're abusive and heavy hand, because you're a natural threat. That's why they do it, because you are armed. You're armed with the genetic material, the DNA, and the potential melanin to wipe the Caucasian race out of existence, if isolated with them. Grafting, so-called race mixing don't produce more white people. It produces more people of so-called color, more non-white people. And you get the picture. It's grafting. It's not mixing. Mixing is a social construct you put in your brain because you don't understand the science. So this natural threat, they put them in the rooms and said, I don't know how I drifted off to that. They put them in the rooms and said, I was talking about the actors, Garrett Morgan and Mr. Mason. They put them in the rooms, separate rooms in the police precinct, and said, you know, where were you at this time during the day? But most of the time, what do? They play good cop, bad cop. And they have other techniques to entrap you. Police are paid and trained to lie. Politicians are trained and paid liars. They're liars who are paid to misrepresent themselves to you as your representatives, but they represent high power oligarchs that run this nation, and plutocrats, and corporatists. Once you separate in the rooms, they lie. They say, you know what? It's Steve and John. You know what, John? Steve said that you were the mastermind. And you're going to do the most time. Then they tell the other one, Stephen, look, John said you were the mastermind. And you did other crimes. Now you cooperate with us and we'll give you a lesser sentence. But they wind up putting both of them back into the same room. And what happens in the same room, what they didn't show you in Cooley High, is the police have cameras and audio in that room where they're putting you back there. They have cameras and audios in all the rooms. But the room, they getting you together, and then they leave the room. They let you talk to yourself. And then you in there exposing yourselves, snitching on yourselves. Man, I told you not to say nothing until we get our lawyer. Stephen was smart. He said, I told you not to say that until we get our lawyer. And John says, well, they said I was going to do all this time. I didn't do it. And then y'all actually start describing the crime, and you start describing how you're going to lie. And they can't use the evidence, but they use the information to entrap you. They went from chain gangs to gangs in chains. They used to roll up with tractor trailers in desperate hoods with poverty, rampant poverty, and crime, and leave a tractor trailer full of brand new sneakers with detectives hiding in the back of the trailer. They have a compartment in the back behind the boxes where the detectives pop out, police pop out to apprehend the mouse you set the trap with that funky cheese. This happens in black hoods. Well, it used to until we had an outrage about it. then they just transform it more. Then they play good cop, bad cop on you. Instead of you shutting your mouth, speaking to a lawyer. There ain't no justice for black people in this country. And the three of you, they're the catch. The first one is normally the one that's in Hempstead. Hempstead, man, just got a tradition of snitches, man. It's just the village board, the school board, you brothers out there hustling, they set you up, man. They entrap you. It's all game. It's a game of death that we should not participate in. Not even the game of life. You're losing the game of life with them. Now you're facing this time. Now you have, you got off. You, the first one that got caught. Now you back in the hood pretty fast. The other two have gone. The first one that gets caught gets the deal. So, but now you back in the hood. And everybody looking at you. Holy, how did he get out so fast? Some dudes is not doing no time. How come their trial taking years? They snitched out to other people. It's all a game. Most of these traitors and backstabbers on the village board and in the duopoly, the black Democrats and the black Republicans in Hempstead, people who are strategic and key there, they have been entrapped. And they have already been made offers they can't refuse. They're punks and cowards and sellouts and traitors to our people and community. But they present themselves as independent. They have sold you out. This is why they work against you. They work against us. Why are there no programs in Hempstead for the youth? Why? Why are there no programs to cultivate young black men into strong black men? Why? All the resources are being sapped out, and Hempstead is very sad. This village is being raped at over $20 million a year, and they're going to do it further. Waylon Hobbs and that sellout puppet board. Waylon Hobbs the puppet, and the puppet board that's selling us out. They are under instructions of planners, the same planners that took us from chain gangs and are putting gangs in chains and not cultivating us, our manhood training, womanhood training. This needs to be financed. They're taking our resources, watching these wealthy outsiders and planners and developers licking their lips for the future deals they get. They're helping them rape this village of over $20 million a year that had devitalized it for decades, that could have went towards mentoring programs, cultivation programs. You need the knowledge yourself. We need the root. We don't even know 100 years ago. You've been robbed of the knowledge of 100 years ago. Most of you can't name your ancestors from 100 years ago. Most of you, black people in Hempstead. If you survive, if you're still here, there's a whole bunch of us, especially in the, up to like the 90s. It caused another migration. I told a brother that back in 2000. When he was talking about buying, he had properties all over the country, the East Coast, in Maryland, I think North Carolina, and Roosevelt. And we were talking about how many people were moving to Georgia. I said, we migrating. It was a light migration, and it was. It was displacement. The displacement was well planned. They just taxed us out. They're paying other people taxes. How do you expect to live? How do you expect to prosper like that? You can't invest in programs. What is cultivation? Teaching the natures of Caucasian and black people to black people. Entrepreneurialism, community value. It's more of an investment in, look, young brothers. Young brothers, and now some of you young sisters, got the young brother energy. You have masculine energy. You've been turned out. Some young sisters at a higher rate. Some brothers get emasculated and feminized at a higher rate today because you have no guidance. Your energy is like missiles, man. Powerful missiles. But you have no guidance systems. You're misguided. You're going straight up and you shoot straight back down into our hoods. That's why you shoot other brothers and sisters that look like you, because it reminds you of your pain. You want to eliminate your pain. But it gets worse. Because no matter, remember that Teddy Pendergrass song, The Sound of Philadelphia? You can't hide from yourself. You can't run from yourself. You can't hide or run from yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are. That's a mirror you look in, and that's they say the eyes are the windows of the soul and mirrors of the spirit. Every time you look in a mirror and your brother and sister, you looking at yourself. That mirror is your soul, and the brother is your soul. The other person is your soul you're looking at through the eyes. And that mirror is yourself, your spirit. Well, I'll correct that later. But you're killing yourself every time you shoot your brother and sister. That's why we have this violence. We don't redistribute our pain the way it needs to be. Caucasians have distributed our resources to take away from cultivation, putting you in poverty. All that pain we take out on each other, and it's all coordinated. It's well planned. He operates from behind the scenes. He takes these entrapped brothers and sisters. He sets you entrap you. It's easy to entrap you with a couple of dollars and a stolen item, a deal. He's listening to everything you do. Go watch Edward Snowden. It's called the movie Snowden. Edward Snowden participated in that film. There's a part in there, I think of like 50 minutes, where it shows how he worked for one of these corporations, this intelligence agency that oversaw all the information. And he was in an underground city, and he was in a part of it, because they go further underground. It was an underground compound, but some of them are cities underground. They have all type of technology. Edward Snowden could take your phone, or he could take your laptop, or your tablet, or your webcam. Edward Snowden could take any camera and microphone that was connected to the internet, and he could observe it. He could commandeer it. If your device was off, that the camera and mic was on, if your device is off, he could turn on the camera and not let the indicator light come on. And the mic, he could turn it on without any indicator light coming on and listen to your conversation. This is one of the reasons why he whistleblew. Edward Snowden is prosecuted for telling the truth. Julian Assange is being prosecuted for speaking the truth. Liars thrive. Politicians, they thrive. The police thrive. They ever increase in their budget. Biden just took all that excess COVID money and told the states, spend it on policing. He said they want to defund the police. We're going further. Why? Because they have a greater investment in your criminalization than they do for you creating community value. Because they devitalize in your communities. They keep you nomadic. They keep you weak, unsettled, off balance economically and civically, socially and spiritually. If you don't have a base, a foundation, a strength, it keeps us nomadic and weak, the way they could just push us around, like in Hempstead. They're just pushing us around, doing whatever they please through the aspies of that corrupt village board. Excuse me. And you are worth more in the prison industrial system, the privatized jailing, than you are in the community. creating community value. You were worth more. Every time they arrest you and you get in that criminal, I'm an alumni of the criminal justice system in Nassau County in the state of New York. I went through that from 80 to 1987. I was in and out of that system. You were security. Every jail bid you do, you were security. You're creating jobs upstate. They actually have a bond of you. You're an investment. They're gonna pay you pennies a day. I did that slave labor at Camp Summit, chopping down trees for the state, working in the sawmill. Camp Summit I was at 86, I think, 85, 86, probably 86. It was a slave labor camp. And it was an experiment camp. Camp Summit was an experimental camp. Because it was sort of like in the prison system, it was like a country club that psychologically eases you, making you look like your labor. Say, oh wow, look, I got this comfort now. I don't have all those bars, I'm not constrained, all that noise. In a dorm, I could graduate to the cubicles, I could work in the kitchen, go out in the field, in the woods. It was slave labor, but you're glad to get out into the forest of upstate New York, chopping down trees. The mosquitoes would tear us up. We had the nets. But I worked in the sawmill. Some of the guys that went out chopping down trees, replanting saplings. All type of fishery. We restocked the reservoirs. Is that Roscoe Reservoir somewhere up there? Upstate, I forgot. Camp Summit, whatever that was near. You're going towards a little town, come back in, you feel good because they've relaxed your shackles. Even though you got mental shackles on, psychologically. It was a test experiment because it doesn't exist anymore. Because it was like a country club. At Camp Summit, it was like, we had an indoor basketball court, gym, indoor. Full, not a half court basketball court in the dorm, next to the dorm and stuff. And a kitchen and right at the end of the dorms, up the hill, they had the main area for visiting. Then they had the sawmill. Excuse me. We had to go up there. They would chop down the trees, and then we would slice up the trees in the sawmill. It was slave labor. And we were happy to do it because we were getting out and getting fresh air out in the wilderness, joking around, stuff like that. It was psychological. They paid us pennies a day. That wood we cut was on the state highways, all type core craft. They have all industries right now that they have planned for you in incarceration, but they won't invest that money for you in your community, to cultivate the community, to teach you training, to teach you trades. And more importantly, which no one teaches you, community value. It's a foreign concept. You hear me speak it every time I come on these podcasts, because it's a vital word. It's an important concept, but it's something we rely on others to plan for us. And they always plan to aim us down and low. Every time you're arrested and you do time, that's another job for people upstate. That was, in Camp Summit, that was the only economy, because after they shut down the camp, that place shut down. All them businesses around there shut down. I was in, 86, 87? 86, I think. Then he made it a work camp, because a brother I know was at that camp. It was what you call that, a strict military, like, shot camp. It was a so-called shot camp. See, they would experiment on us. Let's give them ease and luxury, visits. I was going home on the weekend. It was a lot. I don't want to name no names up there. Sometimes people get embarrassed. People like to forget incarceration. I'm teaching it as a lesson so that you will get insight into what's going on. But some people don't. Some people don't leave that behind them. Some people out of a job. People hear that they were incarcerated, mess them, make people look at them differently. Because people don't understand the system, because you don't understand the nature of Caucasian people. Community value is not invested in. It's not taught. It's not trained. Civics in school is not taught and trained. This is why Hempstead is a school to prison pipeline, which you ask any of them board members, they'll deny because they want to look good. Them board members, why would they, they don't want to recognize that. The majority of Nassau County inmates are former Hempstead Public School students. I think it's like 80%. At one time, it was probably 90. Because when I went in there in the 80s, I saw it was like going on the block. That's why I kept going back to jail, getting incarcerated. It was nothing to me. I started at the Westbury shelter in 79, 80. Strong arm robbery, robbing another kid for their little pennies and stuff, little dollar something they got. Did 18 months behind that in Lincoln Hall. That was ran by the Catholic Church. That was, Lincoln Hall was named after Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if he founded it. I'm pretty sure it was named in his honor it was for all the children who were orphans from the Civil War, from the Union Army. Lincoln Hall was a youth place for them to grow up in. The Catholic Church took it over. And they was just molesting little boys up in there, man, left and right. And still a remnant of that was there when I got there. You could sense who was like that. Celibacy amongst priests, white men, fits into that puny complex, that fear of weak reproduction. Yes, the Catholic Church, they were molesting and raping young boys up there. In the Catholic Church, all that has come out now. They got lawsuits everywhere. Lincoln Hall ain't no different. Well, Lincoln Hall had a school, a Catholic St. Ives school. I did good in that school. I was better educated there than Hempstead Middle School, because it was a Catholic school. And them teachers was all right, even the white ones. But mainly were white teachers. Most of the prefects were black. Mr. Bradley, Mr. E was Puerto Rican, Mac. Mac was a smooth brother, man, from the street. He was a prefect up there in Lincoln Hall. Mr. Banks, over at the Cedar College. I believe he was a New York Giant. He played for them. I believe one of those professional NFL teams. And them prefects, some of them a little shady. But Mr. Bradley was like our father, man, our uncle, man. We love Mr. Bradley. He showed tough love. But he kept it real. And we respect people who keep it real. Him and Mr. E kept it real. Even the white prefects was all right, man. Mr. D, Mr. C looked like Larry Bird. He could play ball. We had a gym in the dorm there. I was in the Pine and the Cedar. It'll come to, no, the Cedar. Yes, that was me and Pookie in the Cedar. That's when I saw what I thought was a baby. Now I understand was maybe a baby plane, because it was like transparent. This is at Lincoln Hall. Me and Pookie we worked, so we had a little extra spare time. We had what's called privileges. It was beautiful up there. There was a farm next to Lincoln Hall. Lincoln Hall had a farm with horses. We used to ride the horse. Baum was one of the brothers that would take us out on the horses. They had the other people who kept the farm. I forgot the white man. He looked like one of the singers from Dow John Oates with the one with the mustache. He looked like him. Excuse me. Stomach growling. Drink some water. Yeah. And excuse me, on this farm, we would ride horses. They had pigs. We used to abuse the pig. The pig would scream, man. Ken Do punched the hell out of that pig. Pie, scream. That pig went screaming. The little piglets were screaming. And we ran away from there. They had chickens and other things on that farm. And it was beautiful at night. You could touch the stars. These big spread out acres, had a pond, had a hill that we called the hill. It was so steep. It had a motorized lift for skiing. And that's right, skiing down that hill, and a motorized lift with a belt would tow you up. You would hold on to it, and a rope would take you back to the hill. We called it the hill. For the 5-mile run, one of the first obstacles you hit was the hill. And we practiced on it for sports and stuff. I did good in sports there. Whatever the cottage me and Pookie was at, We were out like 9 o'clock. I think we had to go to bed at like 10, 9, 10. We was out there hanging out a little later. We had on our robes. It was a little chilly night, nice crisp night, and it was beautiful. Upstate New York, all you see is stars. And me and Pookie was out there smoking cigarettes. That's right, we was 15. They used to buy us cartons of cigarettes, man. This was 1980 in Lincoln Hall. They used to buy us cartons of cigarettes. And we would keep them in storage in the dorm. We'd buy snacks, whatever we want. We worked, they paid us. They paid us an actual salary if you worked there. And I had a few jobs there in the storage room. And whatever we was doing, we saved up that money. Me and Pookie had the privileges. We was out on the porch, big patio type porch in the front of the dorm house, and it had a parlor that was made up nice. We had to keep that parlor up. This was a Catholic-run place that the state had took over, but it kept a lot of them Catholic people there, and we went by the rules and regulations. Mostly, they weren't that strict then, because the state stopped them from doing stuff, but we had duties and stuff. We had to ask permission to do everything. They would teach, because this was later a cultural shock, not a cultural shock, but a noticeable difference when we went back home. And then I didn't just go running to the fridge. I asked my mother, I said, can I go in the fridge? She looked at me, yeah, of course you can go in the fridge. You shouldn't just be letting children go in fridges and food and stuff if they don't have a healthy nutritional regimen, if they aren't taught to eat healthy. I could see if they taught to eat healthy, just like children ask permission to do things around the house. Well, anyway, me and Pookie were out on this patio, and it was beautiful. It's a mountains back there, rolling mountains in a dark night, and them stars that lit up the sky, and it was a little crisp out. And we toking on our cigarettes, and there was a big reservoir in the back. It was all woods up there. This was 1980, Somers, New York. And out of nowhere, like this object that was bigger than a car, it was bigger than a van and about the size of a house. It was in between the van and the house. This translucent object, I couldn't even see what it is. We were looking right at it. I had eagle vision as a teen. I had eagle vision up to like cat and eagle vision up to like about 25 years ago. But as my teenagers up into my 20s and 30s, I had eagle vision. And I looked and I knew what I was looking at because we couldn't discern what it was. It was a translucent object that was miles away from us, and it came from behind the mountain, a mountain range, and it was just sitting there. And Pookie was like, what is that? And it didn't have flashing lights. It was translucent where you couldn't see what it was. But in it were pulsing different color lights. The lights weren't flashing like an airplane or a helicopter or a blimp or a balloon, something, or any object that has a flashing light. This is 1980. And these lights were pulsing inside of this translucent object that came from behind the mountain and sat right there in front of me and Pookie. And we kept asking each other, what is that? What is that? And we couldn't figure it out. We didn't say, oh man, look at that plane. Oh man, look at that helicopter. Look at that blimp. Look at that balloon. Nothing that came to mind. We said, what is that? That we can't see what it is because it's translucent. And it came from behind the mountain and it sat there right in front of us. But this is up there. When you're up on mountains, you can see that distance away. And then it started moving slowly across the mountain range. We got excited. We said, oh man, what is that? That's all we kept saying. What is that? It got so surreal that we started yelling for Mr. Bradley. Me and Pookie, we was out on the patio. We was like, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Bradley. And he was inside. And he wouldn't come out. And the thing just kept drifting across the mountain range, in front of the mountain range. I looked at that Google Maps of that mountain range too, and I'm going to show, I think I've downloaded some of it, but it would be good to show that during a live. And it went across that mountain range. They had the reservoirs in the back. And we kept yelling for Mr. Bradley, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Bradley. It was like, oh man, what is that? Then all of a sudden, he started coming out. And as soon as he got towards that door, that thing, how it came from behind the mountain in the front, that's how it went from the front and back behind it on the other side of the range. And it went behind the mountain, then he came out the door. And then me and Pookie, he said, "What?" We were bothering him. I don't know what he was doing. When he's using the bathroom or doing up in his office. He had a room in the office, the prefects, at Lincoln Hall. It was nice there. So he said, "What?" And me and Pookie said, no, I said, "Me and Pookie just saw a UFO." He said, "No, y'all didn't." And me and Pookie at the same time said, "Yes, we did." And then he looked over there. And then we all went back inside. That happened to me and Pookie. That's Gary Moore. We were incarcerated a whole bunch of times together. Going in the jail was nothing to me. In and out of there. I got institutionalized. I got conditioned. Because of peer pressure, it's like going on a block. I was all over in the streets. From 79 to 86 in Hempstead. At night in the 80s on Main Street. Union was a block. Well, Main Street was a block. 100 Terrace was a block. Bedell. In the early 80s. South Franklin was a block. Even Gladys was a block then. Gladys and Albemarle were considered little blocks. But those were the main blocks. Terrace, Union. And then Stewart had a little activity. Street crime. We were committing street crimes and hustling. Especially on Main Street, though. And being out in them streets, we had more camaraderie. We had more sense than y'all do today. You single mothers, you broken up parents who won't unite to come together with our people to resolve our issues, get cultivation and training, to empower ourselves. Young brothers and some sisters on the street had more sense. We had more things in common. We had that theme, "I'm gonna look out for you. I got you." And most of us, it's a setup. It was sad. Most of them jail beds started with, "Let me show you how to get paid, man. Let's go get paid." Them crimes wasn't well thought out. We would sell the idea to others, "Let's go do the crime," as it was flawless. And just, ain't nobody gonna catch us. I got it all figured out. We ain't figure out nothing. Professional criminals study case areas. When they're robbing the banks, they would see which bank is closest. They would study the clerks, the timing of the Brinks people coming, the cops' route. They have scanners listening to the police. They would get banks closest to highway exits. This is professional criminals. They study things. They go into public records to go get schematics of buildings and stuff that they burglarize and the sewage under them. Professional robbers and stuff, they case place. They create decoys. They create crimes in other areas of the town to get the police over there, to get them away from what they targeted. We didn't have that. They lied to you. Go get paid, go and get this, I know where to sell it. You probably knew where to sell it, and that stuff that you steal and sell, you don't get no money for that. You get pennies on the dollar for them stolen goods. You don't get top dollar for that. eBay, they used to sell stuff. When eBay first came on the scene, they could hide the serial numbers, or they could hide the special markings on things. Some people have found they stolen things on eBay and Amazon. But you didn't think that out. That's why you get caught. You're just going off impulse, how it looks attractive to you. You're stealing. And most crimes are inside jobs. Whenever you see a barbershop that's really close, it's hard for a barbershop to close. You got to have some funky customer service, man. How you talk, most of that stuff is gossip. You're gossiping about people. Some of the brothers in the barbershop, man. You got a warrant. So, and you living in a rooming home with a lot of sex offenders. What you call that when you commit a sexual crime? You get labeled as, I guess, a sex offender, something like that status. You can't live in certain areas. Most of them go into the rental homes to hide. And most brothers who want to stay off the books work in barbershops. Well, in these areas, now you're like that. You're selling drugs in both of the spots, the rooming homes and barbershop. Some barbershops who let brothers go off the books. I know one. Speaking about it, you're gonna set up the fresh young brother coming in there. He got on his gold, he got his car, got his girl, he can cut good. Now he coming to this the new barbershop. And here you are, under the radar, felonies, out of state. You on the low, under a different identity, you set him up. Say, yo, y'all, you close at 9, and then you have your man come in a mask and a pistol to stick up the spot. You the first one. Oh man, go ahead, take what you want, man. Yo, y'all cooperate with him. And they rob everybody. And if you think it's a joke, they fire off a shot into the floor. Brother told me he did that. There's 2 of these I know happened. One I know, but the other was told me. And the brother leaves, he robs your spot, then you just got your jewelry stolen, maybe even your car. Ain't no telling what they took from you. Now you want to call the police, and the brother that's got these warrants to stay in the road, you don't call the cops, man. I got warrants, man. You can't do that. And now you're out the shop. There's a no good nigga set you up. We do that in jail, like, man. I ain't gonna go into them jail stories, because you can imagine how worse it is in there. Well, I ain't gonna go into it. But it's all a trap. And we got to cultivate each other, man. We got to cultivate the youth to be industrious, to be militant, and to express your masculine energy. It's not toxic, brother. White supremacy is toxic. Look at these schools. Who are the graduating students? The passive students, the passive one. Every time our young black men express their masculine energy, they are constrained. Even in jail, we would. What was the brothers doing? What we want to do, we used to do what was called. Excuse me, get this water again. In jail, we used to do what was called hitting the beat. The boom, boom, back, boom, the boom, back. And then one of the brothers would do the rhymes. And then, on them jail walls, them things are loud and bassy. Boom, on the wall. And you would hit the little can or something with your little treble, and you would hit a beat. And the brother would be rapping. This is our expression. This is what we wanted to do. In the 80s, we wanted to be rappers. We wanted to be successful hip-hop artists and get some money and jewelry and ride around with the car and get the fly girls. Back in the early 80s, they were called G-girls, the B-boys and the G-girls. And we had the sweaters. We get the names at the Coliseum in Jamaica Ave. That was the spot. I think the Shirt Kings was still a remnant there. It's still there, I believe. One of the brothers. And we wanted to rap, because that was self-realization. That was expressing ourselves. We saw the popular rappers, they seemed to be doing well with jewelry, with optical stuff. All of them was robbed. None of them got their money, except Russell Simmons got running them their money. All them other ones was just robbed, man. and I think, who else got a lot of money? Search from third base. He Caucasian boy. He had the knowledge of self. Did you know that? I think the 5% brother gave him that name, Search, because he was always searching the knowledge, and he was influenced by the Ansar Allah community there in Brooklyn, and with MF Doom and them brothers that were with the Nuwapian brothers. Most brothers didn't get that rap money. Early on rappers, they didn't keep a lot of that money. They got pennies and stuff. You see what Ice Cube was going through? Look at Ice Cube's story. He never signed a contract. Ice Cube was brilliant because he came under the leadership of that man. You just saw Minister Farrakhan. Minister Farrakhan influence of hip hop was phenomenal. It was intriguing. And the brothers who was working with Ice Cube was working with the Lynch Mob, and they came over to Paul Shabazz studio. The Public Enemy was cutting records of our brother Paul Shabazz and his dad. It's the church now, it's a steeple-looking church. That was a studio back in the days. Across from the Rockville Center, board at the Southern State Parkway, Malloy on one side, the Hollywood Deli is across the street, and that church, that was a studio back in the days. Ice Cube made, I think it's America's Most Wanted, something like that, and a few other hits under, I think that was Hank Shockley. I forgot exactly who was doing that, but Ice Cube had guidance. Most of them don't. Most of them never saw guidance and lawyers, and you let them give you lawyers, and they all got robbed. But most of what we adored and emulated about the hip-hop stars and the rappers was the glitter and gold, and the girls and the high life. I was drinking 40s back then, smoking blunts and doing all type of madness. I consumed whatever they fed us. And so in jail, we would hit the beat. And even in schools, in the school lunchroom, I remember that. We would bring the tapes in there. And we listened to the tapes when hip-hop first came out. We would have our tapes and we would listen to the latest beats and the latest breaks. And in jail, when we hit the beat, what did the teachers tell you? Stop that. Why wouldn't you organize that? See that masculine energy? And there's sisters too, there's some women, that was a part of the early hip-hop in school, but not in jail. I'm talking about in jail. Why wasn't that cultivated? Because it's black male expression, black youth expression. And it's what we wanted to do. It's what we saw in life. And there's a lot more we had the potential to do, but it's never brought out. People do not look in us and see greatness in us. They see conformity. They see a threat to white supremacy. So they keep us suppressed and constrained. You're a young god, brother. You're a prince that got to be developed into a king. And everything's stacked against you. Every expression you have. This is why we party so much. We in so much mental and social pain. We know we great. We are the mighty tribe of Shabazz. That's original man. That's God of the universe. When we submit to the Almighty Supreme Allah. You just saw I put that up on my social media cover pic. The cover pic, that's a picture of Master Father Muhammad. Almighty God Allah in person have come for us, the black man and woman of America, to put us on top. If we would submit our will to do his will and manifest it and live our greatness instead of keep trying to be the Caucasian white man, nigger and Negro, because the only nigger and Negro is the Caucasian nigger and Negro that have no community value, that are a security and a bond, that they build private prisons with, that they invest in private prisons for. They have a whole new task force now. I think 800 agents, something like that. Taking all this pandemic, the last 2 years was a pandemic. It was a shock test. Preparing you. What happened then? All uncertain initially. Excuse me. We were all uncertain. We all were waiting for instructions from the state. And Trump just threw a monkey wrench in the mechanics. Excuse me. Trump denied it. Trump was a maverick. a real maverick. He gave them a hard time. Fauci was the biggest fake there is. We now find out, and we found out that the virus was developed in China and America, military labs, in conjunction with them both. It was a plan. They had us reliant on the state. And thank God Trump was president, because he bucked them. It didn't go as planned. They wanted to take all small businesses, run all small business out of business. They want you to lose your homes. And they want you to be happy with nothing. They took all the resources and they pulled it towards more billionaires, like 45% of the wealth. During the pandemic, these last 2 years went towards enriching billionaires, and a more poor class have emerged. They put their mask on us, which was a good and bad thing too. Their masks blocked those chemtrails up in the air. I'm wearing my mask until the summer. I may even still wear it outside. I feel good, man. Got some strength, energy in me. More power, accessing the 7.5 ounces of spiritual atoms, the God realm. It's very lonely being God. You knowing what you're looking at, and other people can't see it. It's the life of a God. They put the mask on. This was on, I saw the video last year. No, it was 2 years ago when it first broke out. On 19, our brother Hakeem Massanea in Queens page, the 19. They put a video where his brother was saying, look at how this mask, they want the mask because they want eyeball recognition. They want to recognize you by your eyes. And in order for them to develop that technology, they have the mask on so they can still identify you. And sure enough, Apple just came out with an update. Last month, I think it was. I think I did the update, but I didn't do the feature. All my iPhones came up and said, do you want to be recognized with your mask on? I put no. Stay the mask. Still, when I have on my mask, I still got to punch in my PIN code to unlock my iPhone. I never did it because that's what it was about. Young brothers is setting you up. It's to identify you. That pandemic loosen your inhibitions. Y'all went crazy on OnlyFans, going butt naked on there, selling dreams of yourself, fantasy, not touching, money for videos. OnlyFans blew up, and Twitter. They're making money off Twitter doing that, during the pandemic. Do you understand that? Or why did they let so much porn, light porn? It was hardcore, not hardcore, but most of it was porn on Twitter during the pandemic. They were helping you lose your inhibitions. And the brothers, they were getting them emboldened. They weren't arresting them for rolling into malls and stores, swapping goods, materialistic, dumb stuff. You're stealing this stuff, overpriced things, Louis Vuitton, the designer stuff, all that stuff is overpriced. A few of them items is worth the quality. A handful. All them designers, the materials, the leather, the stitching, most of that stuff is basic. It's just got the brand on it. You're paying for a brand. Very few, a handful of the things are actual quality and worth a little more money than regular stuff, but not the exorbitant brand tax they got on there. They had y'all ganging up together. Y'all teamed up. You got it, dummies got it on your phones, on social media. And we're going to gather here today. We're going to storm the spot. And they were getting you conditioned to just storming places, taking what you can and leaving. Now that's a federal crime. And now they're going back looking for those crimes. Now they're apprehending you. And what did they do? They didn't take, Joe Biden took all that COVID money excess and told all the states, just now, recently, spend it on policing. Spend all that money on policing. We're not defunding the police. He wants more policing because he have the spirit of Hillary Clinton and all of them. They're the same. As he's anti-black. And he have the same spirit of that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton had towards us in the 90s, bringing you to heel. Your black male expression is not toxic. It's a natural way of life that is a natural threat to a grafted man that's scared of his own shadow. And it's subtly said in the society. It's subtly done. It's systematic. It's built into civilization. Segregation is how they maintain it. And a part of that is they're filthy as hell. No one wants to see how filthy they are. Now you're busting into the stores. They got you all on record. They got the eye recognition. You had on the mask. You thought you were getting away. That's a federal crime. I think they got 800 agents dedicated to that, bringing up federal charges on y'all. And once they arrest you for that, you know you're going to snitch out to other people because it was such a free-for-all. They encouraged that. Planning from behind the scenes. And we were wondering, why was that happening? Why weren't the police doing anything? They were making you lose. They were conditioning you to get you savage, to make you think that you could just go into places and uninhibited. I mean, just be untouchable, unhindered. Go into place unhindered, and that you were unapprehendable. But it was all planned for now. That's why Biden is increasing that policing. Hillary Clinton said, let's bring him to heel. What do you bring to heel? A dog. Heel, dog, heel. Don't you know they invest more in training a dog, in disciplining a dog, than our youth? They invest in the school to prison pipeline. That's for real. Some of you argue this in Hempstead. Some of you board members. We doing excellent. We got more of a graduation rate. Or it's more of a graduation rate. What's the science and math scores? The lowest in the state. Some of the lowest in the country. America in general fail in the math and science because you refuse to teach the truth. Children are uninterested. There's nothing for us to express there. It's a false. You see people going through the motion. You ask them to do something. The Pledge of Allegiance. I don't do the Pledge of Allegiance. For me, it's a moment of silence, peace, and self-discipline. Look who it stirs up. I said that at an IDA board meeting. The mayor of Freeport was stirred, and I forgot the other mayor, or the other representative. No, because he was the one looking, the other representative of the IDA board. I think it was the Freeport IDA representative on that board panel at the time, waiting for the Hempstead ones to come take a seat when our agenda came up for Hempstead. But the mayor of Freeport all stirred up, and that's just what I told her. I said it's interesting how a moment of silence, peace, and self-discipline can stir up demons, and it turned away from you. They don't have any programs for you. They have a plan for you. The prison industrial complex. Hempstead is a school to prison pipeline. It has failed you. They love graduate. They're miseducating you. This is why they don't teach civics and civics, even physics, industrialism, entrepreneurialism, community pride, self-love. This is education. That's how you properly educate somebody. With some strong, relevant teachers who look like us, who act like us, who are cultivated. This got to be a certain class we got to have in education, a certain class of teachers. The developers and planners who were planning on gentrifying Hempstead to bring in the gentry were planning to have their school superintendent. They had brought in Shimon Wanaka, an Orthodox Jew. And he had his own company with these 4 master teachers that were going to teach all the teachers. They never taught the current teachers. He never taught one because they were on reserve for the gentry, because they're keeping you a permanent underclass. Carter G. Woodson pointed that out 89 years ago in Miseducation of the Negro. And you Negroes still miss education. And you're worse because you're in charge of education. You're governing. You're administrating the miseducation. It's the blind leading the blind. And it's sad. It's pitiful. This is the man we need to follow. Farrakhan. His teaching of militancy, strength, self-love, and pride. Ali sacrificing. Ali sacrificed. His character was so super developed. He's a high caliber character. He sacrifices his title, boxing. He still had it in his blood, but he was willing to give it all up for principles that he stood on. That's character. Not who's the highest bidder. All of you are the highest bidder. Everybody wants to be important, but you can't be important in someone else's picture. We often say education, if you're in a room with 10 people, right now it's 10 of us in the room, and someone takes a picture of us, later on, when you look at the picture, what's the first thing you look for? You look for yourself. When you're in a car accident, there's a bus accident, bam, a bus. There's 50 people on the bus. One of your relatives is on the bus. You jump on that bus. Who are you going to look for? Your relative, yourself. We need to make this happen in education so we can start putting out graduation rates of graduates who are culturally relevant and who bring community value. You are no value to your community. I just saw a meme that was bragging about some sports star. Oh, he has this amount of businesses, he has that amount of businesses. None of them in the black community. He has less community value than the hustler in Main Street, selling shirts with his family. That hustler is more relevant, he's more powerful, he's more influential in the community and the relationships with our families, our churches, the mosques, and our broken institutes. Black Hempstead, your institutions are just pitiful. They wait for pain points, they wait for triggers. They wait for protests, outrage. Then they take a stand, then they appear. No principles, nothing for our culture. Because the keys to our culture are here. I got the keys. Cultivating us. And what is it? You love yourself so much you will sacrifice yourself for the well-being of the furtherance of our youth. They got a jail cell for you, young black brother. It's a trick. Skip the peer pressure. Don't listen to them, man. Them young brothers are selling you dreams. They don't plan out them crimes. And when they do, they're going to snitch you out anyway. And what does that do back in the community? It's a lot of these shootings that you see. A lot of them is territory. Somebody owes somebody some money. A slight. You done snitched. Yeah, that's snitch. That's him. He went with our boy. I was in jail when this revenge came. I was in Nassau County Jail. We won a tier. It wasn't E. Was that B? I don't know, man. This was the 80s. I can't say the names who was there. But a big brother there, man. When he was like the boss of that was my man. No, he was the boss. And last time I saw him was in the late 80s in Hempstead, the old Hempstead bus terminal. I can't say his name because I haven't spoke to him about this. And he was like the boss of the tier, big brother. And there was a few on the tier like that. We used to body, we used to play games, we used to play cards and dominoes, checkers and chess, watching the TV. The was the MC, not Music Box. This was when Ron DMC, Rock Box was out, stuff like that. This was about a year before that. And there was a brother from the block on there, Smooth brother. I can't say his name, tall brother. He was on the block. He's like, oh yeah, we know the brother. He's from the block. Because Hempstead was all up in there. Hempstead, Roosevelt, Freeport. Yes. If you was from Queens outside New York City, you was doing serious time coming in Nassau County to do a crime. Them judges was no joke. They were giving them hard time. I met a killer in there from the Bronx, man. And, well, that's another story, because that's long. I don't want to take too long. We were on the tier, and there was a few other big, and the rest of us were just average brothers. We knew each other from the street. Some of us were from Freeport, Roosevelt. We were hanging out in there, smoking our little weed, and smoking our cigarettes. They let us smoke cigarettes then. And one of the brothers, influential brother, that was working the food truck, the food carts, they bring the carts to the tier. They would feed us in the tier. That's right, we didn't go down to the mess hall on this tier, I believe then. They brought us the food to our cell. And we would eat in the cell. That's where we would save the milk. We would do food cooking. We would cook in the cell. That's pitiful, man. We would take the stainless steel shelf, the soap dish, over the sink. It was all stainless steel. The commode was stainless steel. The mirror was polished stainless steel in the Nassau County cells we were in. And we were doubled in here. We were double bunk bed. And we would cook the little grilled cheese sandwich. Take a old milk container that we saved. And I have to admit it, it's real, it happened. Some of the brothers take a plastic bag, put the milk in the plastic bag, and stick it in the toilet. To keep the cold toilet water, that's the only water we had preserved. To keep the milk cold in the bag, to take it out, take the milk out the plastic bag. And well, that container, yeah, no, think about it now. But back then, you high and struggling, and you doing MacGyver stuff in jail. And believe me, we was always planning to escape if you had long bids. I didn't have no long bids like that. I wasn't thinking about some dudes were. They studied every inch of that jail, watched every seal, because a few cats took off. From Nassau County Jail visiting room, they had the 2 double glass doors. They weren't paying attention. It was wide open. Once you get out there, you could make it past the open gate. It was gates there, but it was open gates there for the drive-in. And one dude just timed it. He hung out close to the visiting double doors, and the COs was behind. It gets stupid. The COs was behind windows and stuff, and one CO was walking around in the visiting room, monitoring stuff. But I guess when he went over to the corner, that brother was he started hanging out close to that door, acting like he was doing something. And when that door opened, and that brother took off, and he made it out. And another brother took off at the Mineola Courthouse. They would roll a bus up to there. They didn't have nothing there. They would let us out, and the brother took off. Quite a brother took off from there. Now it's gates around there. They roll into a gate to close the gate when the bus comes in to let you out to go into the door to the Mineola Courts. I'm pretty sure they do the same thing in Hempstead, or the district. I've never seen the inmates going in there. I think it's a garage now. But we were on the tier back then, and we knew everybody. And it was a revenge beating. The brother that was on that food service cart bringing us the meals, he spoke to the brother, the big brother. He do all them push-ups. That brother do most push-ups than us, man. And he told him, he said, yo, man, that smooth, slick brother from the block that's in there, he abused my sister, man. He hit my sister. I think he smacked and punched his sister. He was going with his sister, and he punched her. And the dude was like, yeah. So we all sitting down watching TV, to relax. And, we had crews in there. You had little posses, back then what they called them. And we had sets from Hempstead, and we knew each other. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, that big brother had a sock full of soap, state soap. And he came up behind the slick dude that abused the brother on the food cart sister, this slick brother with the braids. and he bashed him upside the head with the soap, started beating him down, and that brother jumped up, shocked. Why am I getting this beating? And so, now, a couple of minutes earlier, we was cool with him. Yeah, man, what's up? Yeah, you on the block? Yeah, we watching TV. We was playing the little dominoes and the checkers and the chess and the cards and stuff. And all of a sudden, smash! He started beating them down. So we all had to back up, all of us, and get in line with the brother that was doing the beating. Because he was the boss on the tier. Now we was little street scramblers and stuff, and you know, the other brother was with him. All the brothers were with him. And now, because of street beef, you're getting beat down in jail. And he got beat down. And we didn't do nothing about it. And after the beat down and all the weather cleared up, then we became cool again. But he got that beat down. And a lot of these killings is that, man. It's revenge. And we have this outburst, this crying, oh, it's violence, oh, the shootings, oh, that. Let's deal with the core of these relationships, this conflict. There are reasons why we're doing this, man, that other people don't know. It's people like, this dude frustrated me, he lied to me, he snitched on me, he did this and that, this other conflict. We need a conflict resolution center. Is that in the budget? Willenhams Village Hall, is that in the budget? Cultivation Center? A Restoration Resource Center, is that in the budget? No, they're taking all our money, they're funding back the police. They don't have a community for you to build. If you develop generational wealth, young brother, they got a jail cell for you. We go do your revenge hits there. You can go play cards there. They don't even let you smoke no more there. I heard. I haven't been in a while. I haven't been in since the late 90s, I think. A brother, I went to Nassau County. I should go there, see a few people. And then in there, seeing other people I know. I took the brother some books, Message to the Black Man. Put a few dollars on his books. And then, as part of the Nation of Islam prison ministry, members would go into jail. And I think Minister Abdul Hafiz Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, our beautiful brother. He went to go visit a brother in Nassau County and stuff, and since I was his driver, I would go with him. And it was another brother who had the manhood training, and I spoke at the Westbury Village a long time ago. That's when Mr. Garnett was there. He was there when I was a child there in 1980, 79, 80. And Mr. Hayes was there. I knew Mr. Hayes from the street. And that was Derek Weathers' father-in-law. And they were staying at the Madison Monroe. So Mr. Hayes, he always could, I never gave him no trouble. Mr. Hayes was like an uncle, man. Matter of fact, one day I went looking for Derek, and because Derek used to DJ in the apartment, making all that noise. And Mr. Hayes would peek in the room. We had to keep the noise down. That was me, Trey, and Deke, I think. And one day I went over there, and I said, is Derek home? He said, nah, man. He said, come on with me, Mr. Hayes. And he took me to the Freeport docks to go get some fresh fish. I don't know if they still do that. Yeah, they do. They do. It's a restaurant over there, too, now. But that was all the docks, and that was the freshest fish. They would catch right there in Freeport and buy the fish, and we rolled back together to Hempstead. And he went on up stuff, cooked the fish. And so I knew him personally. So in the jail, Westbury Shelter, in the 80s, if you cut up against him and you were playing with him, he would run you down. And if you outran him, he would take off his shoe and throw it at you. Pow! To get us back in line. There's quite a few of us in there in the shelter. We were all in there, what I'm talking about, in the 80s. So many of us brothers, man. And once you're in there, you got these beefs. So where's the investment? Let's invest in a Restoration Resource Center. And we can't put it right back in Hempstead because that deceptive sellout board is betraying us. They're gentrifying that whole area. All them small businesses, you're gone. And that 300-acre footprint, all of those small businesses are gone. You're going to be out of business. Right now, you better be trying to find a new location for your business in case we can't block that racist, illegal sneaky Renaissance MDA. That is gentrification. You homeowners and you tenants in that area, all are going to lose your homes, and none of you will be welcome back in the new place. None that's in the contract. Nothing is guaranteed. You will have to go elsewhere. That's the whole plan. Excuse me. That's the whole plan to keep us nomadic. He's a master of divide and conquer. He manipulates all this behind the scenes. Many of them shootings anyway. Be people that ain't trapped getting them to do things. A lot of that is engineered behind the scenes. Block busting that ran all the black people out of Hempstead in the 50s. In the 60s, I think it was in 1 year, all the white folks left. The majority bulk, 90%. Hempstead was an all-white town with a sprinkle of black people. In the 50s, it was a shopping and transit hub. You see that picture on the Soul of Hempstead? And they block busted it on purpose. They let one black person into one block. All the white people would move off that block. And now they're reversing it. Now they're taxing us out. They overassessed our homes, and we're paying wealthy outside apartment owners property taxes. They don't produce jobs. 5 jobs the most you get out of an apartment building, and none of it high enough salary to pay the property tax. Has a benefit for giving them the tax break. It's a gain. And they're bringing the gentry back. They're bringing them back. And they're shuffling you out, and you're so satisfied. Until you hit rock bottom, until the pain hits you, then you get outraged. And you cry, you want other people to help you instead of us resolving our issues right here in Hempstead with a Restoration Resource Center. And we need a contractor that will not be overtaxed, that will be properly taxed, that will not be displaced, and that it will be protected. All of you new business owners signing your leases and you homeowners need that in your lease. Because in the Renaissance MDA, it's written in there that that village board must help them destroy that 300 acres and must help them with any part of that development. And that board gladly oblige. Wayland Hobbs loves displacing poor black people. He treats poor black people like roaches. They pester them. That's why you don't see him in the hood. This is why he's pressuring that quality of life. That ain't for you. It's to break your spirit, to emasculate you. Going down Main Street with the bikes. Why are you harassing people out there? Ran them out the train station. You have no program for them to go to. This is a coward. This is an enemy of our people and community. But you can change. Look, brother, I love you and I offer you to embrace. I have my arms open for you to change. Because I love you, brother. And I want to see us all successful and productive. But right now, you operating with your friends and your handlers, oligarchs, plutocrats, corporatists of that duopoly Democrat-Republican Party in Hempstead aim to keep us a permanent underclass with a few of you hand-picked ones to remain as survivors. That's a sad state. Why we got to build a new state. Happens with a new mind. Tune into your heart. Get your spirit right. Let me see if there's any questions here. All right, Bernice Cannon. Truth. Right on, sister. Yep, truth with love. Queen Shaka Asa, Brother Aubrey. Walaikum salam, my sister. Shaka. Allah got us, sister. Yeah, this is it. It's the truth indeed, the sure truth, that we must form a Restoration Resource Center to develop and guide our youth who are being set up. Ms. Farrakhan been warning us for decades. Stop the killing. He toured the country. What other politician or leader was touring the country to the young brothers telling us to stop the killing. Stop killing each other, brother. Come on, unite with me. Let's get together. But you were all undermined by these fake teachers, these fake preachers. And ain't nothing fake about a politician, because they're just politicians. Ain't no good in them towards us. We can only do good for ourselves. A Restoration Resource Center in Hempstead to guide, to cultivate. We got to do this. We got to demand our own resource. Or we got to boycott. Don't pay property taxes. We can take countermeasures if we united enough to do it, or we bold enough to do it. Because they sure they're gonna have countermeasures against us. They ceased my mom's lease at the Avalon. April Fool's Day, April 1st. So fitting for that devil that did it. The Avalon in Westbury ceased my mother's lease. It's retaliation for my community activism. And they hate black people anyway. They consolidating all those apartments. Why you think they building more luxury apartments? They're taking your homes. All them apartments is out of reach. Them rents starting at $3K for a 2-bedroom. Starting at that much. And for some whack amenities around people you don't even know, because they're breaking up families and communities. First thing they did was busted up our families 500 years ago. We built back families in the 60s and 70s. Now they've dwindled down again because we trust Miss Planners. And it's your own Negro preachers, teachers, and these politicians that you are following, that you put your trust in. Most of us, some of us don't go from, you know who you are. If you conscious, right on to you. You see they chiming in. Speaking the sure truth. And black pride and black power. It's in loving yourself, doing for yourself. You can no longer trust them. It is so evident. It is a pandemic. 2 years they've been doing this. Don't become a robot. I put on my Facebook page, I'm gonna leave you with this. I put a post on my social media, Facebook, and all the other social media platforms. I said, from here on, you're gonna be God, cyborg, or zombie. Choose wisely. I'm choosing God. Original Asiatic black man. Make on a cream out of planet Earth. God of the universe. All right, family. I'll leave you as I greeted you in the universal words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto you.